Alright guys, so we're going to go over the review sheet today because your test is tomorrow. So, any questions on 1 through 4? Nope. Yes. So, for this here, the sum of the interior angles for each polygon, well, is given to us by the formula n minus 2 times 180, where n is the number of sides. Now, for 2, well, this would be 20 minus 2 times 180. And really, at this point here, you could type it into the calculator and you'd be done. As we can say, 20 minus 2 is, and do 18 times 180, which is going to be 3,240 degrees. Now, how about for the next one? What would that be? 10. Deca is 10. So 10 minus 2 times 180. Well, 10 minus 2 is 8. And 8 times 180 is 1,440 degrees. And that's all we need to do for these here. Any other questions on 1 through 4? Find one interior angle in a regular polygon. Well, we're still using the same formula, n minus 2 times 180, but this time we're going to divide it by n. Because if we only want one angle in a regular polygon, well, since it's a regular polygon, all the angles are the exact same, so we can divide it by the number of sides. So for 6, we could say 8 minus 2 times 180 and divide it by 8. And really at this point here, we could type the whole thing into the calculator. 8 minus 2 times 180 divided by 8 will tell us that this is 135 degrees. Because for 12, well, we can say 12 minus 2 times 180 divided by 12. And this here would be 150 degrees. Any questions on this here? Nine through 12, find the sum of the exterior angles. So what's the sum of the exterior angles for 27 gone? Okay, how about a and 3? The sum of the exterior angles is always 360 degrees. Now, if we want to find one exterior angle, well, we know the sum of any of these here is. So for a decagon, this divided by 10, which would give us 36 degrees. Because if I only want one angle, one exterior angle in a regular polygon, divided by the number of sides. So for 21 gone, we would take 360 and divide it by 21. 360 divided by 21 is 17.14, or approximately this. Yes. Because not every number will divide into 360 evenly. Any other questions on these here? Any questions on 1 through 15? Classify the polygon by the number of sides based off the sum of the interior angles. Which one of these do we want to look at? 19. 15,300 degrees. Well, I know that the sum of the interior angles of a polygon is given to us by the equation n minus 2 times 180. So n minus 2, whatever the number of sides is, if I plugged it into n minus 2 times 180, it would tell me that it's 15,300 degrees. So I just need to solve for the value of n. So the first thing we need to do is divide both sides by 180. So we get n minus 2 is equal to 30. And we should get 85. And what do we do next? Add 2 to both sides, which tells us and we can say this is an 87 gone. 87 gone. Any other questions on these 4 here? Because all 4 of these are going to be the exact same. We set n minus 2 times 180 equal to whatever the amount is, divide by 180, and then add 2. And again, it's important to remember to add the 2 because it will be two sides short if we don't do that. So any other one of these here that y'all want to look at? Or do we feel comfortable with these here? Okay. For problems 20 through 24, find the value of x. Which one of these do y'all want to look at? 20, 21, 23? So looking at 23, we want to find the value of x. Now, it's not specifically written in, but really we're looking for these 3 angles. And they're going to be congruent because of the mark inside the angle lets you know that these 3 angles are going to be the exact same. So, if it was not quite, because we don't have any 4-sided figures, parallelograms, I think is what you're thinking of, because the opposite angles in a parallelogram would be congruent. But unfortunately, this isn't a parallelogram, so we can't necessarily say that's true. But we do have 6 sides, yes? So we can use the 6 minus 2 times 180 to figure out what the sum of these interior angles are. Now, it might be that it is 130. We would just have to find it. Now, this here is 720. So what that means for us is that x plus x plus x plus 140 plus 170 plus 130 is 720. Because for these here, since they don't tell us what the sum of the interior angles is directly, we have to find it using n minus 2 times 180. And once we do, we can add all the angles together and set it equal to it. So here we have x, which would be 3x plus 440. Because the 170 and 130 would be 300, and then we can add 140 to it. Our next step would be to subtract the 440 from both sides. Now this would tell us that 3x is equal to then we would exactly divide by 3 to figure out what the value of x is. Because 9 times 3 is 27, so 9 is, I think it's going to be 93 and a third. Divided by 3 is, yep, 93 and 1/3. And I think the answer key agrees with that. Yeah. 280 divided by 3. Yeah. Yeah. So switching over to fractional, since it didn't reduce, it wouldn't bring it down farther than that. The 2 arrows above it will flip it over into a decimal. Yeah, because it didn't want to take it out of 280 over 3, because since it doesn't reduce to whole numbers and it's a repeating decimal, it wanted to leave it as that. Yep. So all 3 of those angles are 93 and 1/3 degree. I have to look at the test itself. Any questions on this here? Is there another one of these that y'all want to look at? 24? Now, just like 23, we do need to figure out what the sum of the interior angles are. And one of the easier ways to do this is actually count the angles, because some of the sides can be hard to see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we can do 8 minus 2 times 180 to figure out the sum of the interior angles. And I think this is 1080. So it's 1080 degrees. So, 2x plus x plus 143 plus 152 plus 116 plus 125 plus 140 plus 139 all this here is equal to 1080. Well, okay. Because adding the variables together is not that bad. It's 2x plus x is 3x. 143, 152, 116, 125, 140, and 139 all add together to be 815. Now at this point here we can minus 815 from both sides. Over here we'll have the 3x because these cancel. 5 gives us a 2. 6 gives us an 80 minus 815 is 265. And lastly, we would divide by 3 to get x by itself. x is going to equal, because 7 would be 24. No, actually 88, and because 8 times 3 is 24. Yeah, I was 88 and a third. Yeah, you can do 1/3 or yeah, that's fine. Or 88 point. If you give me a bunch of 3s, that's fine too. Any questions on this here? Any other questions on 20 through 24, 21 through 24? So any of these here, you do need to find the sum of the interior angles and then go from there. Questions on 25 through 28 are one of those that y'all want to look at. They're different. Right, because 2x and x, these here are both located on the exterior. Now the sum of the exterior angles is 360. So if I take 2x minus 1 plus x plus 64 over here is 90 plus, yes. Now even though they didn't give us this angle here, the interior angle and the exterior angle will always make a straight line and add together to be 180. So for us to find this, we really just need to take 180 minus 135, bless you, and get 45 degrees. So that missing angle is 45. And give myself enough room. And this here is equal to 360, because the sum of the exterior angles will always be 360 degrees. Now at this point here, we can add the like terms. Well, 2x plus x is 3x. Well, -1 plus 64 is going to be 63. 63 and 45 is 108. I think this should be plus 198. So it's -1 plus 64 plus 90 plus 45. Almost. Oh, yes, no, I got it right. Y'all agree with 198? Yeah. I was about to put 199 and realized I plugged in 91 instead of 90. Now at this point here, we can subtract 198 from both sides, which tells us that 3x is equal to, because 2 would give us 200, so 162. And lastly, we would x is equal to 54. 54 degrees. Yep. Because it only asks for the value of x. Any other questions on this one here? Any questions on 26 or 27? Because those will be the exact same. We'll set them equal to 360 and solve for the value of x. Questions on 29 through 38. 29 would be a quadrilateral. because we have no information about any of the side lengths, any side lengths that are parallel, or any of the angles. So all we can say it's a four-sided figure. 30 would be a it'd be a rectangle. Because it is a parallelogram, because we do have two pairs of parallel sides, and the opposite sides are congruent, but we do have this 90-degree angle. Since it is a parallelogram, the opposite angles are congruent, and the consecutive angles are supplementary, so they would all be right angles. No, because here it just wants the most specific way. Isosceles Trapezoid. Because a trapezoid has one set of parallel lines. So if a four-sided figure has one set, only one, it's a trapezoid. Now, if the non-parallel sides are congruent, it is isosceles. So the most specific name for this here would be an isosceles trapezoid. 36 is just a trapezoid. Because it only has one pair of parallel sides. It would not be a rhombus. Because a kite is a quadrilateral with two sets of consecutive congruent sides. 34 would be a rhombus. Is a parallelogram. Because we can say it's a quadrilateral. It doesn't tell us anything about the sides, but because the opposite angles are congruent, we can say that it is a parallelogram, which means the opposite sides are congruent, but that really doesn't tell us anything else, because for it to be a rhombus, all four sides have to be congruent. For it to be a square, we have to have four right angles and all congruent sides. And a rectangle needs all four angles to be right angles. But we don't have any of that. So the most we can say is that it's a parallelogram. Yes, both of these could just be quadrilaterals. Find the value of the variables for each parallelogram. Questions on 43 through 48 are one of those that y'all want to look at in particular. Determine if the following quadrilaterals are parallelograms. If so, I have a feeling I just threw that out because it's not going to be on the test. So I didn't include it. So let's look at 43 through 48. Missing variables. Is there one of these that y'all want to look at? 44. So here we know that the opposite angles are congruent. Now for one of them, we have that 2x plus 35 is equal to 3y minus 11. Well, I can't do anything with that one because it has two different variables. But the other one, 5x minus 30 is equal to 3x plus 20. Okay, that has x. So what that means is I need to solve for the value of x and then plug it back into the other equation to solve for the value of y. Well, the first thing we can do is what? minus 3x from both sides. 5x minus 3x is going to be 2x minus 30 is equal to 20. Now we can add 30 to both sides, which will tell me that 2x is equal to 50. Divide by 2, telling me x is equal to 25. So we found the value of x, we need to find the value of y. Exactly, so we can plug 25 in. 2 times 25 plus 35. Really, if we wanted to, we could type this entire side into the calculator because it's all numbers. Right, because 2 times 25 is 50. And 50 plus 35 is 85 is equal to 3y minus. So if we add 11 to both sides, exactly we would get that. Six is equal to 3y. And lastly, we would divide both sides by 3, telling us y is equal to 32. So x is 25 and y is 32. And with any of these here, and especially on the test, if it gives you more than one variable, look at what's congruent, what's the same, and set them equal to each other, and then further. Okay. Because we want at least one equation where we have only one variable. And then we can use that to find the other. We good, Tony, or almost? Okay. We'll look at 47 here in a minute. 47?
Yeah. So let those just equal each other?
Yes, these two here would be congruent, so we can say that 9x plus 4 is equal to subtract 2x from both sides, which will tell us that 7x plus 4 is equal to 20. At this point here, we would 2/7 or whatever that is as a decimal. Bless you. I think it's, I have 29 or 285 as the answer key for 47. Probably going to hear the 16 over 7. Yep. Yeah, because this is equal to 16 over 7. Any other questions on 42 through 48? We give them 42 through 48? Questions on 49 through 56? So 50, we know that the opposite sides are going to be congruent. So 2x plus 4 equals 3y minus 1. And 4x minus 7 is equal to x plus 29. Now we can't solve the one that I wrote in red because we have two variables. We have x and y, yes? But the one in green only has one. So the first thing we could do is subtract x from both sides, which will tell us that 3x minus 7 is equal to 29. Then we can add 7 to both sides. This shows us that 3x is equal to 36. Divided by 3, I can scroll up here in a second. X is equal to 12. And then we can plug the x back in and do 2 times 12, which is 4 plus 4 is equal to 3y minus 1. So and luckily we do get a nice whole number this time. We can, actually we aren't. 29 equals 3y. Because 9 would be 27. Yeah, because I think if you plug it into the calculator and got a decimal, it should be 0.6 repeated. Yep. Yep, 9.6 repeated, or 9 2/3. And these here would be our two answers. Any questions over any of this here? So any other questions on 49 through 56? So 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, or 56? Or 55. Find the length of AC and BD. Well, if it is a rectangle, the diagonals are congruent. So we can set these two equal to each other. And solve for the value of y. And then plug it back in because it's asking for length. So here the first thing we can do is add both sides, yes. And here we would get 3y plus 36 is equal to 5y. Subtract 3y from both sides, telling us that 36 is equal to 2y. Lastly, we can divide both sides by 2, telling us y is equal to 18. Yes. Yeah, there should be one on my desk. Or there was one. Yep, right here. Now the last thing we need to do is plug it back in, so we can say 3 times 18 plus 12. Well, 3 times 18 is 54. 54 plus 12 is 66. And if we did the same thing with 5y, we should get also 66, which is really telling us that AC is 66 and BD is 66. Any questions on this here? Mm-hmm. HJ and KI is going to be the exact same thing we just did. Now the measure of angle KLH, I would scroll down. Angle KLH is going to be a right angle. Mm-hmm. Yep, KLH is 90. Mm-hmm. Any other questions on this here? Questions on 57 through 64. Now have to add it together to be 360. Now the consecutive angles are the angles between the two bases. So these two here will add together to be 180. So y is 90, yes. Now for the other one here, x plus 60 is 180. Mm-hmm. Now if it is a isosceles trapezoid, the base angles are congruent. So that means for us here that z is 61 degrees. And again, these two here still add together to be 180. Well, what I can really do is 180 minus 61, which is 119. So x is, yes, because they are both base angles. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Any other questions on 57 or 58? Well, 59 is the exact same as 58. It's just turned on its side. Let's look at 60. Well, we know what the measure of angle 1 is. 90. It's a right angle. What's the measure of angle 2 going to be? 40. $15? 3 would not be 15 because these two angles here are congruent, but 15 and 3 are not. Yep. Right, because x equals, this here is a triangle, so those three angles would add together to be 180, which tells us that angle 3 is 50. We'll do the same thing there, and we'll finish this. Let's finish this one here today, and then we'll wrap up tomorrow. Yep. Yeah, we can wrap up before the test if we have time. We'll see then. Here, these three would add together to be 180, which actually works out that angle 4 is going to be 75, which actually means that angle 5 is 75 also. Because we only have one thing left, and that's the mid-segments, I believe. And we'll wrap that up tomorrow.